Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:07 on a Friday morning here in D.C. Brian Eamon, Brian Wilson with you. We got the jobs numbers coming up in about 23 minutes. We'll bring them to you. Brett Baer from the Fox News Channel will join us about 8:36 this morning. All coming up. ABC's Jake Tapper joins us now, senior White House correspondent. Good morning, Jake.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty well. I watched World News last night. I know you did a piece on the president's new campaign documentary. It's pretty spiffy. What's it called? The Road We've Traveled. Did you glean anything new out of this piece about how they plan on running this campaign, or any new slogan on what it's about?
They're trying to reframe it. I mean, they do not want this to be a referendum on President Obama. They do not want this to be about, do you approve of the job he's done as president, or are you better off than you were 4 years ago? They want it to be about something else. This film is a very highly produced, I've only seen snippets of it. I haven't seen the whole film, but what they've released shows that it's a very highly produced attempt to reframe it from the headlines. Tom Hanks narrates this specifically from the headlines directly to, let's remember where we were when President Obama took office and how difficult it was back then, and think of his presidency in the context of, how far we've come since then, which is different than, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Right.
So it's basically, hey, things could have been worse.
I mean, I don't think they would put it that way. I think it's more along the lines of, let's remember the context of how bad everything was, and how, and we didn't even know how bad it was when we were getting into it, and keep that in mind when you make your decision in November. And all the hope you had for Obama back then, you should still have that hope because we've come so far together. That's the message.
Well, to me at least, that was similar to what President Bush ran on in 2004, which is, hey, if you don't reelect me, things will be worse. Think of Iraq as bad now. It'll be even worse if John Kerry wins. It's almost to the same line. So that's
the other similarity between Bush in 2004 and Obama 2012 is that Bush, I believe he was under 50% in approval ratings on Election Day. I think people, or at least a month before Election Day. And when you're an incumbent politician, and that is your situation, what you need to do is to make the alternative so unacceptable that even people who do not approve of the job that you're doing vote for you. And that probably will be what President Obama needs to do with the Republican nominee. Cast him as so unacceptable that even if you're not entirely happy and not entirely pleased with the direction the country's going and the job the president's done, that other guy, presumably Mitt Romney, but whomever, will take us back to the wrong place. And he is so unacceptable, and he is so XYZ that you can't go that way. And I think we'll see a replay of that in 2012.
Yesterday, the president is said to have gotten on the phone and lobbied Democratic senators about this Keystone Pipeline matter that was being considered by the Senate. And he had some success, because even though there were 11 Democrats who joined Republicans, you didn't get to 60. Are you surprised at a time when gas prices are so high that the president decided to sort of double down on the Keystone Pipeline?
Well, this is a report from Politico that I have not followed up on. I have not tried to find out its accuracy. But assuming it's true, it would not surprise me, because the president has said that he opposes attempts to force, in his view, the Keystone Pipeline project through when he thinks that they should reapply, and his mind would be open to the reapplication. TransCanada, the company, has announced that they're going to go forward with the southern part of the project from Oklahoma to the Gulf of Mexico. I don't think that there's any proof that gas prices, that if the pipeline...
everybody understands that. If you were to build it tomorrow, if it were in place, that'd be one thing, but it's going to be many years. But the larger point is, it's at a time when Americans say, in some of the exit polling, that 77% of them believe that the price of gasoline is a big deal. It may be the thing that informs their vote.
If I could rephrase it, the question is: are you surprised that President Obama, given how vulnerable he is on this issue, would stake out this position?
That's sort of what I'm asking.
It does surprise me as a political matter, not as a policy matter. It does surprise me as a political matter a little bit, because polling indicates this is a big issue. They know that, the administration, the White House, the Obama campaign know that this is a big issue, and an issue of vulnerability for him, since he ran in many ways on gas prices in 2008, and gas prices are obviously significantly higher now than they were when he took office. And he's out there talking about how he favors an all-of-the-above approach, but Republicans have been pretty successful at pointing out that all of the above does not include the Keystone Pipeline, and that's an issue, according to polling, that those who are paying attention to that debate, those who are aware of it, support the Republicans' position on it. So, as a matter of politics, yes, it does surprise me.
But Jake Hardy, I mean, can you just? I'm trying to figure out why they don't want to do it. Is it solely because they're environmentalists who are pushing him not to do this, and there's money involved? Is there something else to it? Because clearly it has enough votes, or would have enough votes to pass in the House, and with 11 Democrats basically voting for it yesterday, seems like there is a majority of support for it in the Congress, and I think the American people support it from a majority standpoint.
I think that there were questions about the pipeline as it was proposed, possibly adversely affecting the water supply in Nebraska, and the governor of Nebraska at the time opposed the pipeline. And TransCanada has said that there are alternate routes, but I think that those routes have not been fully vetted and fully studied. And I think that's the substantive answer about the policy of it.
Do you get any sense that they're getting a little tired of their Secretary of Energy over at the White House, or are they standing behind him foursquare?
I do not get the impression. You're talking about how the fact that he said he didn't own a car.
Well, yeah, he didn't own a car, and then which okay.
There's a debate in this room whether or not that matters. Well, I don't think it matters. Brian does.
I'm of the opinion that it just sort of shows they got a guy making policy about energy at a time when gas prices are through the roof, who doesn't really understand or doesn't experience on a daily basis what Americans are going through, and I think he's a little out of touch. Well, that's my larger point. But I mean, but the other thing he said the other day was, he had to take it back and walk it back, that lowering gas prices was not the thing he cared most about.
Well, I think the question is whether or not is that your goal? Is that your job at the Department of Energy to reduce gas prices? And he said that his job was, in his view, to wean Americans off of foreign imports of oil and pursue a more comprehensive energy supply program, which ultimately would mean lower gas prices. I think the problem with Stephen Chu, from the perspective of the likes of us, is he's not a politician. He's a Nobel Prize-winning professor, and he's an academic. And he answers questions not like a politician. He answers questions like a Nobel Prize-winning professor. And sometimes that's not the political. Look, the truth is, no cabinet secretary, or even a lot of the people with cabinet rank, is driving themselves around Washington, D.C. They all have cars.
Well, he apparently takes a bike to work.
In Washington?
Yes, that's what we read.
That's what we read. It hasn't been.
He has a $5,000 high carbon fiber bike that he often rides to work.
Is that right?
And the Secret Service follows him in a bike that has an electric motor on it, according to the story I read this morning.
I don't know if you're being serious now.
I'm being serious. There are reports out there that he rides a bike to work often.
But would that surprise you that a green Nobel Prize-winning professor from California, where was he before? Stanford?
Yeah.
Rides a bike to work?
Doesn't surprise me.
Honestly, I don't know how much time you spend in California or in the academic world, but that fits in perfectly.
But my larger point is the guy's making decisions about our energy policy, and he's really not in touch with what it is to be a working stiff who has to fill up his pickup truck each week.
But you can see,
so you want him to drive a pickup truck?
I just want him to understand what it's like to be an American who's paying $75 for a tank full of gas.
But if you think that way,
I'm not Stephen Chu's attorney or spokesman.
Right.
I mean, all I can say is that's not who he is. He is not that guy that you're talking about. He is not driving a pickup truck. I don't know that he would view the challenge of what you're discussing, of high energy prices, and say, well, I need to drive a pickup truck to understand it. I think he would probably say, I get it, and that's why I'm pursuing this vision of alternate fuels, and that's why I live that life by riding my bike.
I'm way over, but I just want to say, it seems to me that the thing is that if you is it a liability for a president to have a Secretary of Energy who doesn't really get what it's like to be a working stiff, who doesn't have that connection.
See, that's the same thing that Democrats will say about Mitt Romney, that he's so rich that he doesn't have any kind of impact, high gas prices on any kind of impact.
Well, if it's fair to make that argument, is it fair to make the other?
We're way out of time.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jake. It's something that you could perhaps debate on the roundtable this weekend.
Well, we'll talk about it on the roundtable this week, on this Sunday on This Week, but let me just also say, it's all fair. It's all fair conversation.
All right, Jake. Great to have you on as always.